The auction cell. The cold air inside the metal cage smelled like rust, sweat, and fear. Caleb Ross sat in the corner, his back against the freezing wall, his arms chained tightly and his ankles bruised. He hadn't eaten properly in days. His lips were dry, his throat burned, and yet his eyes stayed open. He didn't want to blink. Not when every time he did, he felt like a piece of his soul slipped further away. All around him were others. Humans. Some asleep, some crying, some already broken. Alien guards walked past the cages, laughing in deep, scratchy voices. Their armor clanked and their weapons shone under the flickering lights. This was not a prison. This was a market. And Caleb was merchandise. On the far side of the hall, a large auction screen blinked to life. A new name appeared. Lot No. 93, male human, strong build, clean genetic line. Caleb knew that was him. A group of wealthy aliens entered the room, their robes flowing, faces hidden behind metallic masks or glowing helmets. They spoke in different tongues, but all shared one thing: power. They pointed at different cages, whispered numbers, and laughed at the idea of owning a human. The auctioneer, a fat green alien with 6 eyes, banged his hammer and shouted, "Let the bidding begin." One alien offered 40,000 units, another raised it to 60,000. Then someone in the back yawned and raised a hand lazily, offering 100,000. Caleb's ears rang. Why so much for him? Then the room fell silent. The sound of high heels echoed down the corridor. Calm, confident steps. Everyone turned. She entered like a shadow wrapped in starlight. Tall, graceful, and glowing with a soft golden light around her skin. She wore a long dark cloak that shimmered like a galaxy. Her face was uncovered. Her eyes, sharp, silver, and unreadable, moved slowly across the cages. She looked like royalty, or maybe something older, something wiser. No one dared speak. The auctioneer cleared his throat nervously. "Lady Vireya, we were not expecting—" She raised one hand. He stopped talking. Without a word, she walked along the cages, her boots making no sound now. Her eyes scanned every prisoner. She paused once in front of a child, then moved on. Then she stopped in front of Caleb. Their eyes met. Caleb didn't flinch. He didn't beg. He didn't look away. He just stared. Even with pain in his body, even with fear in his chest, she pointed at him. "That one," she said softly, her voice like cold wind through trees. The crowd murmured. The auctioneer blinked. "Him, Lady Vireya?" Human?" She nodded once. "Yes," the auctioneer hesitated. "The current bid is 100,000. Do you—" 500,000, she said. Gasps echoed. A few aliens stepped back. "No counteroffers?" the auctioneer asked, his voice shaking. Silence. "Sold to Lady Vireya." The guards quickly unlocked Caleb's chains and dragged him forward. He nearly fell, his legs weak. But he stood. Somehow he stood. She didn't help him. She just turned and walked away. He followed. Inside her ship, everything was clean, quiet, and beautiful. Strange lights floated in the air, and soft music played from the walls. The floor was warm. Caleb was led to a private room, no guards. No chains. A clean uniform was placed on the bed. Fresh water and food waited on a glowing table. He ate slowly, watching the door. She entered only after an hour. Her cloak was gone, replaced by a simple robe. Still, her presence felt powerful. Caleb stood. "Why?" he asked. "Why what?" She replied, "Why did you buy me?" She looked at him, not blinking. "Because you were awake." His eyebrows drew together. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. She turned and left the room, leaving only her voice behind. "Rest, human. Tomorrow we talk." He stood there, silent, heart racing. There was no kindness in her tone, but no cruelty either. Just mystery. And in a galaxy full of monsters, Caleb had learned that mystery was sometimes more dangerous than hate. But for the first time in weeks, he wasn't afraid. He was curious. The Garden of Silent Stars, the next morning, or at least what felt like morning aboard the ship, Caleb awoke to a soft, unfamiliar scent in the air. It was warm, floral, almost like something from Earth. Maybe lavender? He couldn't tell. He sat up, expecting guards or instructions, but instead found the door to his chamber already open. No chains, no voices, just the faint sound of quiet wind and strange melodies floating through the corridors. For a long moment he hesitated. Then slowly he walked out, barefoot, cautious, heart drumming with questions he didn't know how to ask. The corridor was made of some smooth black metal, but there were no harsh lights, no alarms, no signs of danger, only the faint, peaceful hum of life. He followed the sound and smell, turning corner after corner until he stepped into a large, domed room and stopped breathing. It wasn't a room. It was a garden. A massive indoor greenhouse stretched before him like a piece of a dream. Glowing vines hung from the ceiling. Thick-leafed plants shimmered with blue light, and tall trees with golden bark swayed gently as if touched by invisible wind. Small floating orbs drifted through the air, glowing like fireflies casting soft halos across the leaves. Caleb took a step forward and saw a narrow stream winding between smooth stones, its water crystal clear. It reminded him of places he had read about in Earth books, places humans no longer visited. His breath caught when he saw the most unexpected thing. A wooden bench under a glowing tree, and beside it, a table. On the table lay a small dusty object. He walked toward it, and his knees almost buckled when he realized what it was. It was a book. A real paper book. English title, Leaves of Grass, Walt Whitman. He touched it with trembling fingers, then looked up, and there she was. Vireya stood across the garden watching him silently. Her robe was light gray now, simple but elegant. Her silver eyes looked softer today, but her face remained unreadable. Caleb rose slowly. "You read Earth books?" he asked, his voice low, full of disbelief. Vireya stepped forward and looked at the book without answering. Then she moved past him, motioning with her hand for him to follow. He did, unsure why he obeyed her, only knowing that this place, this moment, felt different than anything he had ever experienced. She led him to a side room, smaller, darker, where the walls were covered in shelves and glowing screens. It looked like a shrine. Caleb's eyes widened as he saw the objects: a rusted earth coin, an old compass, a cracked coffee mug that read, "Best Dad Ever," an old photograph of a sunrise, a single worn-out shoe, and even an ancient earth flag folded neatly in a case. He turned slowly, eyes wide. You collect earth things?" Vireya gave a slow nod, her voice gentle. "I admire your people. Not for their strength, but for their spirit. You remember things that others forget. You love simple things, like warm bread or music or holding hands. In the stars, that kind of love is rare." Caleb swallowed, still trying to understand. "But Earth is gone. At least that's what everyone says." "Not gone," she said, "just hidden." His heart skipped. "You've been there?" Her eyes clouded, and for the first time she looked human, like someone who had carried pain for far too long. "A long time ago, I stood on a beach of your world. I watched your oceans move with purpose like breathing giants. I loved someone there, but war took him, and now only memories remain." Caleb felt the weight of her words, thick like fog. He sat slowly on the floor. "That's why you saved me?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "I saved you because you were not asleep. Not just with your eyes. You were present. You were still alive inside." A long silence passed between them. Then Caleb asked, "What do you want from me?" Vireya looked at him long and hard. "I want to remember. I want to understand what it means to be human. I want to feel the earth again, not through relics, but through someone who lived it." He stared at her, uncertain. "I don't even know who I am anymore." "You will," she replied, turning away. "But first you must know this. There are those who would kill to keep you from remembering." Before Caleb could respond, a sudden alarm rang in the distance, soft but urgent. Vireya's eyes narrowed. "Stay here," she said firmly. And just like that, she vanished into the shadows, her robe sweeping like a whisper behind her. Caleb stood alone, surrounded by memories of a lost world, his heart racing. He looked once more at the book, then at the photograph of the Earth sunrise. Something was happening. Something much bigger than him, and somehow, he was part of it. The visitor from the past. The alarm faded into a low hum, but the tension it brought stayed thick in the air. Caleb stood frozen in the room of Earth relics, his pulse thudding in his ears. The walls around him felt suddenly less peaceful, more watchful. Every sound echoed louder: the faint hiss of the door closing behind Vireya, the buzzing from a screen in the corner, the distant thud of movement on the ship. He moved to the center of the room, unsure whether to stay still or run. But where would he even go? He didn't know how to use this ship, or what threat had caused the alarm. All he knew was something had changed. Something was coming. Footsteps echoed from the hallway outside. Heavy, deliberate, armored. Not like Vireya's quiet, graceful steps. These sounded like war. Then the door slid open. A tall figure stepped in, clothed in black metal armor with red lines glowing across his chest. His helmet covered his face entirely, and 2 red lights glowed where eyes should be. In his right hand, he held a long plasma blade humming softly, and on his left shoulder was the mark Caleb had seen once before, the Trade Dominion emblem, the same group that sold humans like animals. The stranger stared at him in silence for a moment. Caleb took a step back. "Who are you?" Caleb asked, his voice firm but shaking. The assassin didn't answer. He tilted his head slightly and then, like someone remembering a forgotten detail, spoke in a gravelly voice. "Impossible." Caleb narrowed his eyes. "What?" The figure stepped closer. "You shouldn't be alive. Your line was erased." Caleb's breath caught. "What are you talking about?" The assassin raised the blade and the hum grew louder. "They said your bloodline was destroyed during the final purge. But now you're here, breathing. This changes everything." Caleb backed away until he hit the wall. "I don't understand." "What bloodline?" Just then, a blast of energy struck the assassin's back. He stumbled forward but didn't fall. Another shot came, this time from the hallway. The attacker turned, hissing in pain, and for the first time, Caleb saw fear in his stance. Vireya entered the room, calm but deadly. Her hand held a glowing white weapon unlike anything Caleb had ever seen. It pulsed with light as if powered by a star. "Step away from him," she ordered. The assassin straightened but said nothing. Instead, he turned and sprinted toward her with inhuman speed, plasma blade raised. She didn't flinch. With a single movement, she raised her hand and released a beam of white energy that lit up the entire room. The assassin screamed as it hit him mid-air, his armor cracking, his body slamming into the far wall. The blade clattered to the ground. For a long moment, he lay there motionless. Then he vanished, his body dematerializing into sparks, as if he had never existed. The silence that followed was louder than any alarm. Caleb stared at her, his chest rising and falling. What was that? Who was he? Vireya lowered her arm slowly, her face unreadable again. A shadow reclaimer, one of the Trade Dominion's deadliest. They're only sent when something threatens their balance. Caleb pointed to where the assassin stood moments ago. He said I wasn't supposed to be alive. He said something about a bloodline. What does that mean? Vireya stepped closer, her voice lower now, softer. There's something I haven't told you. Something no one has told any human for generations. He waited. She continued. Long ago, when Earth fell, the Trade Dominion didn't just conquer your planet. They tried to erase it. Not just buildings and cities, but families, names, bloodlines. They feared your people. Not because you were violent, but because you were unpredictable, creative, emotional, capable of building peace or destroying empires. Caleb stared at her. And me? You come from one of the hidden lines, she said. A family that was supposed to die in the purge. Someone hid you. Or your ancestors. That assassin saw something in your DNA, a threat. Caleb's head spun. But I'm just a mechanic. I was working on ships when they caught me. I didn't even know my parents. Vireya nodded. Exactly. They kept you hidden, maybe even from yourself, but now, the galaxy knows you exist. He sat down, overwhelmed. His hands trembled slightly. Why are you helping me? She took a long breath and sat beside him, something she had never done before. Because once I failed to protect someone I loved. He was human like you. His name was Elias Ross. Caleb looked up sharply. Ross? That's my last name. Vireya's eyes widened just slightly, and in that moment everything fell into place. I don't know how, she whispered, but you might be his descendant. Caleb sat still, staring at the glowing relics on the shelves. If what she said was true, his life wasn't an accident. His capture, his survival, none of it was chance. He carried something that others feared. Something that had survived a purge meant to wipe out hope. He looked at her. What happens now? Vireya stood slowly. Now we hide, and we prepare. Because they will come again, and next time, they won't send one. As she left the room, Caleb stayed behind, staring at the flickering lights, feeling for the first time like he wasn't just a prisoner or a survivor. He was a spark from the past, and maybe a fire for the future. Earth wasn't destroyed. It was hidden. When the chaos finally calmed, the ship entered a long, silent drift through deep star fields, and Caleb found himself unable to sleep. Not because of fear, but because the revelation inside his chest was too heavy to shut down. His ancestry, his identity, his entire sense of who he was had tilted in one single moment. He wasn't just a random captured human, not just a leftover soul lost in the dark edges of the galaxy. He was a remnant of a bloodline that was never supposed to survive. His last name was not random. Someone in the past protected it like fire. He walked slowly through the ship alone that night, touching the walls, feeling the hum of old technology and breathing in the surreal idea that he was possibly connected to someone Vireya once loved, someone she once failed to protect. For the first time, the silence did not feel empty. It felt full, like the universe itself was holding breath, waiting for the next step he would take. The next day, Vireya finally called him to the command room. The space was wide, circular, with a dome of transparent crystal that revealed the galaxy stretching like an endless ocean above and around them. Stars formed rivers, dust clouds shimmered like spilled diamonds, and entire nebulae flickered like distant bonfires. Caleb stood at the center of the room, feeling like he was staring into eternity itself. Vireya stood beside the main control pillar, her hand hovering over a glowing sphere that pulsed with information beyond human logic. Without speaking, she tapped her fingers gently, and the entire star projection above them shifted, forming a new map. A massive cluster with lines, routes, borders, and systems marked in bright gold. Caleb recognized none of them. But then the map zoomed inward, narrowing, filtering until only a small region remained. Then it filtered again. And again. A single coordinate point remained, covered with 3 layers of encryption symbols. She turned slowly to him. "This is Earth," Caleb froze. It was like being stabbed with emotion and disbelief at the same time. Earth, his home world, the cradle of his ancestors, a place he believed gone forever. But the glowing symbol pulsed bright and strong like a heartbeat on the map. He whispered, "I thought it was destroyed." Vireya's voice softened. "That is what everyone believes. That is what the Dominion forced the galaxy to accept. They bombed major cities, yes. They burned archives, erased public memory, even forged cosmic data records. But Earth was never destroyed. It was only hidden away at the last moment by those who still believed in the uniqueness of your species. Old allies used forbidden technology to wrap the system in a false coordinate field. To the universe, Earth simply stopped existing, gone to myth." Caleb felt his knees weaken, and he held the railing beside him. 1,000 emotions collided. Grief, hope, rage, confusion, nostalgia for a place he hardly remembered but somehow felt carved within his bones. Why didn't anyone tell humans? Why didn't anyone try to return? Vireya looked away for a moment. Because to return means to expose it again. If the Dominion confirms Earth is still real, they will return with cleansing fire. They fear your kind because humans have something no other species holds the same way. Imagination powered by emotion. You invent impossible things just because you feel something strongly. You build miracles only because you hope for them. That is why they tried to erase your line. Humans are dangerous not because of destruction, but because of creation. Her words echoed inside him deeper than anything he ever heard in his life. Then she leaned closer and lowered her voice. "The assassin who came yesterday? That was only the beginning. When they confirm the DNA signature they detected, when they realize a human of lineage still exists, they will come for Earth eventually. And if you stand unprepared, Earth will fall all over again." Caleb clenched his fists. "So what do we do?" Vireya pressed her palm against the glowing map. "We do not return yet. We need answers first. We need proof that Earth still remembers its lost children. Before we expose ourselves, we need to find the hidden relay station your ancestors left before the purge. It holds communication keys that only a descendant can unlock." Caleb felt his chest tighten. "You mean me?" "Yes, you," she said. "There are secrets waiting for your bloodline. Secrets that even I was never allowed to access." Outside the dome, a comet streaked across the galaxy like a silent omen. Caleb watched it disappear into the black distance, and he realized his journey was no longer just survival. It was responsibility. The future of his entire species, the truth of Earth, and whatever legacy his ancestors left behind were tied to him now, not as a prisoner, not as a slave, but as a successor of forgotten fire. Vireya turned away from the star dome and walked toward the navigation seat. Caleb followed slowly, feeling a strange calm settle inside him. Fear was still there, yes, but something else had awakened too. A fierce, quiet strength that felt ancient, like something carried deep in DNA. Something that said humans were more than weakness or broken hope. Vireya spoke without turning back. Our next destination is where the Dominion first realized humans were uncontainable. A place even they fear entering now. He swallowed hard. Where? She brought up new coordinates glowing in red. The ruins of the old war. And with one silent command, her ship shifted direction, engines roaring with purpose, launching them toward a past buried in darkness, and a future waiting to ignite. The bounty on the human, the journey toward the ruins of the old war, took 3 long cycles, and every passing hour felt heavier than the one before, because now Caleb was no longer running away from a single danger. Now he was being hunted by entire systems that wanted him erased forever. Vireya monitored the star routes in complete silence as her ship glided through dark sectors of space. Almost no one dared enter anymore. Caleb noticed subtle changes in her that he couldn't fully explain. She was more alert, more guarded, and even though she rarely showed emotion, there was now a constant tension behind her eyes. The tension of someone who knew things were already set in motion long before he even existed. She spent hours without speaking, scanning encrypted transmissions, decoding threat waves, tracking Dominion frequencies. One evening as Caleb tried to sleep, a sudden broadcast alarm flashed on every screen in the ship, pulling both of them toward the central holo display instantly. Galactic News was broadcasting a galaxy-wide alert with an image that made his heart drop like a stone inside his chest. It was him, his face, his name, his species. Human, identified as a legal anomaly. Reward: 12 million credits. The Dominion had officially placed a full galactic bounty on Caleb Ross. Caleb felt the crushing weight of destiny land on his shoulders. A single announcement like that meant every bounty hunter, smuggler, pirate captain, outlaw militia, mercenary force, slaver syndicate, and desperate, starving soldier who needed money now wanted him dead or captured. He stared at the holo while Vireya slowly stepped closer beside him. The screen continued to display translated messages across different alien dialects. Capture alive if possible. Kill if necessary. Bloodline retrieval priority. Caleb quietly realized this was no longer just personal survival. This was species-level war beginning again, without Earth even knowing it started. Vireya turned off the broadcast without panic, without fear, without change in her voice. "We move faster from now on," she said. "Every port, every station, every signal network will be watching for your face now. We cannot trust anyone." She then placed a small glowing device into his hand. "This will alter your retinal signature. It will not hide that you are human, but it will at least delay recognition from automated scanners." Caleb closed his fingers around it and felt again that strange pressure in his chest. This woman wasn't just protecting him because of the past. She was protecting a future she refused to let repeat. As they approached the war ruins, the space outside turned darker and colder, with broken chunks of ancient ships floating like silent corpses frozen in starless graveyards. Massive twisted hulls the size of cities drifted in black void, like ghosts from a battle that changed history. Caleb's heart pounded. This place wasn't just war history. This was where humanity made last stand ages ago. The ship slowed through narrow passageways between destroyed cruisers and shattered weapon platforms, many still humming with dead electricity and memory of screams long gone. Vireya lowered the ship's stealth field and hovered near a broken battle moon, where war logs said the final encoded message was hidden. "Your ancestors left something here," she said. "Not a weapon, not a shield. Something far more dangerous than both." Caleb felt chills crawl up his skin. "What?" She looked at him. "Truth." The scanning beams activated and swept through ancient metal bones until they locked onto a buried vault signal, still emitting a faint human signature. They initiated the retrieval. But before the vault doors could open, a cluster of ships suddenly appeared behind them. Fast, silent, weapon ready, reacting directly to the bounty broadcast. The central hunter ship sent a direct transmission. "We know the human is with you. Hand him over and maybe we allow you to live." Caleb looked at Vireya. She did not blink. She replied to them calmly, "You came for the wrong human. This one cannot be sold. This one cannot be bargained." Caleb realized something terrifying and empowering at the same time. She wasn't protecting him like a possession. She was defending him like a cause. The vault beneath them unlocked, releasing a small, floating metallic cube engraved with ancient Earth code. Vireya caught it gently with both hands, and her voice softened. "Once we open this cube, Earth will know a descendant still lives. But the moment we activate it, the galaxy will no longer be able to pretend your world is gone." Caleb swallowed hard because now every breath he took meant Earth was becoming visible again. The hunters behind them charged weapons at full power, waiting to destroy them before knowledge spread. The future of Earth was suddenly held between Vireya's fingers, in that metal cube, in Caleb's existence, in one impossible choice. And this time, Caleb did not feel like a prisoner. He felt like a beginning. Return to the blue marble. The ship escaped the ambush by shifting into a blind jump corridor, a forbidden navigation channel only ancient civilizations remembered how to use. Caleb felt the ship tremble like it was being pulled through a million razor wires in silence, and when the engines finally stabilized, the space around them was no longer filled with wreckage and dead war monuments. Instead, it felt clean, untouched, quiet, as if the universe itself wanted to hide this region from all the chaos outside. When Vireya slowly opened the cube from the old war ruins, a soft, warm light crawled out of it like a memory waking up from eternal sleep. And as that light spread across the navigation map, Caleb saw a new star route appear in front of them that no computer system had ever shown before. It wasn't a warp route. It wasn't a space lane. It was something like a living path, a hidden breathing artery of space that led toward a single distant point, glowing with a gentle blue aura. Caleb's heartbeat became unsteady. Vireya said nothing, but her eyes softened as if in silent respect. When the ship approached that location, the blue light grew larger, wider, brighter, and then Caleb saw it in full clarity, a round blue world covered in cloud patterns and white atmosphere glow. He fell to his knees without even realizing it, his body shaking. Earth was real. Earth was alive. The blue marble was not a memory. It was right there in front of him, untouched, breathing sacred. Tears came uninvited, not the fragile tears of hopelessness, but tears born from relief so deep it felt like his bones were crying too. It was not the same Earth he remembered as a child, but something more powerful. It was a promise that survived destruction, a truth the galaxy believed was erased, a living miracle still protected by hidden hands. The ship slowly descended through the invisible cloak around the planet, and Caleb noticed something strange. There were no city lights visible from orbit, no massive networks, no visible megastructures. Earth hid her survival even from those who finally made it home. Vireya activated a secret beacon, and a cloaked landing platform phased into existence from emptiness, inviting them quietly. When they landed, a group of humans wearing advanced yet natural earth-woven suits approached the ship. Their faces held shock, fear, caution, but also a deep curiosity because they recognized the aura of something ancient in Caleb the moment they saw him step out. One elder man stepped forward, eyes sharp, voice steady. "Who are you?" Caleb tried to speak, but words broke halfway in his throat. Vireya answered for him. "He carries the Ross bloodline. I believe your people have been waiting a long time for someone from that line to return." The elder man went pale, his knees nearly buckled. He whispered to the guards around him, "Call the council immediately. This is beyond the timelines we expected." Caleb looked at earth soil under his feet, and he realized this place was not destroyed like stories claimed. Humanity had gone silent not because they were defeated, but because they were evolving in secret. The elder turned to Caleb and finally spoke again, this time with a voice full of weight. "Do you know what your ancestor did that night before the purge?" Caleb shook his head slowly. The elder placed a hand on his shoulder. He triggered the hiding protocol himself. He sacrificed his life to save Earth, and he left a message encoded in the Ross genetic memory. Only a Ross descendant can open it. Vireya, who had been silent, finally stepped closer and said softly, "The galaxy is searching for him. The Dominion already placed a reward. They will eventually find this planet if we do nothing." The elder nodded slowly. "That is why we will open the genetic key now. The time has come." Caleb placed his hand on an ancient Earth resonance device, and as soon as his skin touched the surface, a surge of living light shot upward and filled the entire chamber. His mind exploded with memories he had never lived. War flames, last Earth Council decisions, his ancestor whispering, "Hide the home so our children may return." And then Caleb heard that ancestor voice speaking directly in his mind. "If you found this message, then the galaxy is ready for truth again." When the light faded, Caleb collapsed to the ground, exhausted but alive, and the council stood speechless because they knew something unstoppable had just begun. Caleb slowly stood up, his breathing uneven, and looked at Vireya. She stepped close, and for the first time her stoic mask broke. Emotion flickered behind her silver eyes. Earth had changed her too. She protected Earth because she once loved someone from here, and now a new human with the same blood stood beside her, not as property, not as a burden, not as a relic of history, but as a new center of possibility. Earth was no longer lost. The galaxy would not be able to bury the truth anymore. Vireya spoke softly, almost like a vow. "From this moment, we are no longer hiding. We choose what happens next." Caleb nodded because he wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was a signal, a return, a restart of something humanity was destined to finish. And at that same moment, far above the planet in deep void, Dominion long-range sensors detected a faint spike in spatial distortion, the kind only Earth's hidden system could produce. A warning pulse flashed across their command screens. Earth had been found again. War was coming, but this time Earth was not alone. When the Widow fought for Earth, the skies above Earth, once protected by silence and secrecy, now shimmered with tension. The pulse that echoed from the ancient cube, the signal Caleb's DNA had unlocked, did more than awaken Earth's history. It triggered the Dominion's fury. Across distant corners of the galaxy, machines blinked to life. Coordinates were calculated and warships were set into motion. The veil had been lifted. Earth was no longer a myth. It was a target again. And this time the enemy would not send whispers or shadows, they would come with fire. But Earth was no longer defenseless. Earth had remembered who she was. In the heart of the reborn sanctuary city, Caleb stood before the council as leaders, scholars, soldiers, and even children gathered to witness what hadn't happened in generations, one of their own returning from the stars not broken, but burning with purpose. He carried not just the legacy of Elias Ross, he carried the awakening of a people who had waited in patience, in silence, in exile, for the moment to rise again. And yet, even with Earth's hidden technologies and unified resolve, no one could ignore the dark reality pressing against the edge of their skies. A fleet was coming. Vireya stood beside Caleb, cloaked in battle armor unlike anything Earth had seen before, an elegant, obsidian suit that shimmered like it was forged from night itself. She had never planned to stay this long, never planned to be seen as more than a protector. But something inside her changed the day Caleb knelt before the view of Earth's atmosphere in tears. She had watched empires rise and fall, had lost a husband, had wandered systems in silence for decades. But in Caleb's eyes she saw something terrifying and beautiful, hope. It scared her more than death. The Dominion arrived without warning. They didn't speak. They didn't threaten. They simply emerged, 20 dreadnoughts forming a perfect line beyond Earth's orbital shield. Their weapons already locked, engines hot, fleets in standby. Earth's defense systems, long hidden beneath oceans and mountains, activated for the first time in centuries. Towering cannons rose from old volcanoes, anti-gravity spikes pulsed from under the Arctic, and cloaked satellites shimmered into view above the clouds. The ground itself hummed with readiness. But before a single Earth weapon could fire, one lone ship left orbit, Vireya's. She didn't wait. She didn't ask. She simply rose into the sky like a storm-given form. Caleb watched from the command center, his voice caught in his throat. "Why is she going alone?" The elder council leader placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder and whispered, "Because she understands something most warriors never do. Sometimes, a single soul standing for something true is more terrifying than an entire army. On the Dominion dreadnought's main deck, alarms screamed as Vireya's ship appeared before them, unarmed, shields down. She stood on her command platform and opened direct visual contact. They recognized her, a widow of the First Treaty, a traitor to their code, a protector of forbidden life. "You come to protect the human?" The Dominion commander growled through the screen. She tilted her head calmly, her silver eyes sharp. "Not just him. I stand for Earth now. You stand alone." "No," she said, her voice suddenly echoing not just across comms but into their systems. "I stand with everything you've tried to erase." Then the lights in her ship surged white. Her body pulsed with ancient tech bonded to her bloodstream. She didn't attack the dreadnought with weapons. She attacked their very systems with a song of frequencies no machine was built to survive. Their targeting sensors collapsed. Their engines short-circuited, and in seconds the fleet stumbled in space like titans confused by a ghost. But one ship fired anyway. A missile streaked through the dark, pierced her shield and struck her vessel directly. From Earth, Caleb saw the explosion tear through the night sky. He screamed her name. The council watched in silence as debris scattered. Smoke bled into the stars, but before despair could take root, her ship did not fall. It held, and from its center, a single escape pod emerged, her body glowing inside, injured but alive. Earth's defense systems activated at full power now. With her signal as the ignition point, the weapons hidden across the planet struck back. Not in blind rage, but in precision born from generations of waiting. The Dominion fleet never stood a chance. One by one, their ships fell. Not to hate, not to destruction, but to a world that had been silent too long. Earth was not primitive. Earth was not lost. Earth had been patient. And patience had now turned to fire. When the battle ended, Vireya was brought down in a medical cradle. Blood in her mouth, her armor cracked, but her eyes still full of defiance. Caleb stayed beside her for hours, refusing to move, until she finally opened her eyes. "You stayed," she whispered. "I always will," he said. She smiled for the first time. "Your people, they still dream." "And you," he whispered, brushing a lock of silver hair from her face. "You remind us why we should never stop." Weeks later, when Earth finally revealed herself to the galaxy, the message she sent was not one of conquest but of memory. She told the stars, "We are still here. We remember. We forgive. But we will never forget." Caleb stood at the front of that message as Earth's new voice. Vireya stood beside him, not as a widow anymore, but as a living part of Earth's new story. The stars had feared the human spark, but now they would respect its flame. And so the boy once sold in chains now stood as a symbol of freedom. And the alien widow who once mourned in silence? She became the fire that lit Earth's return, and the galaxy would never be the same again. End of story.